Joining us now to answer that question, FDD Senior Fellow and Senior Iran Program Director Behnam Ben Taleblu, and the host of Standpoint Podcast, Gabe Grossman. Great to see you both. So, Behnam, we'll start with you. Just where are we in what is happening now with this ceasing and firing? Are we at a ceasefire? Are we going towards a deal? Where are we?
Great to be with you, Katie. Listen, all valid questions. One could say we're in the war over the ceasefire or in the latest phase of the ceasefire war. You know, Iran's ballistic missile barrage at Israel was quite historic because it's the first time it was extending the radius or the cover of its own national assets like ballistic missiles, which, by the way, are dwindling in number thanks to the success of America and Israel's operation against the Islamic Republic that you mentioned, Epic Fury. But at the same time, they're gambling right now, and they're trying to drive a wedge, as you rightly mentioned, between America and Israel and try to get the superpower to put pressure on the ally rather than on the adversary. These guys are acting and thinking and working in the region like America wants a deal more than they need a deal. And that's why, despite their economy being on life support, the blockade is working actually even faster than many economists had thought. They are acting like they have been the winner of the latest round of fighting. So even though we're still technically in a ceasefire, I don't think the shooting will be stopping anytime soon.
So just to follow up on that, in terms of Iran trying to rebuild its capacity, what are you seeing in terms of what they're trying to do during this period where we are not attacking regularly inside of Iran to rebuild their ballistic missile program?
Well, the good news is, first and foremost, that the blockade is hindering that. It's like taking a boxer and tying one arm behind their back. Before the war started, for example, Iran was exporting about 2.1 million barrels of oil per day. Thanks to the success of the blockade for the month of May, Iran exported 64,000 barrels of oil per day. So the economy is in dire straits. That translates to only 4 ships getting past the U.S. blockade, smaller vessels, not super tankers. That means that the regime can't, quote unquote, build back better, which means that the more they fire, or every projectile, drone, missile they fire, is one they can't replace anytime soon. So if we went back in there and really gave them another, you could say, lesson or another deterrence by punishment 101, they would have even less assets and have to make even tougher choices. But right now they're gambling that will restrain not just ourselves, but our partners. And that's why they feel more comfortable firing those limited assets.
Well, we hope that that bet is not a good one for them. Gabe, you've watched the relationship between President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for years. They've been friends for decades. They worked closely during his first term, of course, have worked closely together in the second term. What do you make of where their relationship stands now?
First of all, Katie, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure. I think it's the President Trump has put Netanyahu in a horrible position, politically speaking. We are in election season in Israel. The elections are about to start. The elections are just getting started. We'll probably see elections before October of this year by emasculating essentially Prime Minister Netanyahu, telling him he can't attack. And Netanyahu then responded, attacked immediately. But then the next day made an announcement all over Israel saying, look, never mind, that was enough. We did enough. And we're now going to stand back. The entire country, from the right wing all the way to the left wing, opposes that. Everybody wants Prime Minister Netanyahu to finish the job. Everyone appreciates President Trump, both here in the United States and the pro-Israel community and in Israel. But everybody understands that this is a job that must be finished. And like the guest said, and like you said in your opening, it's not going to be through a deal. It's only going to be through force.
So in terms, and Israel, of course, lost almost 24 soldiers from Hezbollah attacks in southern Lebanon and northern Israel since the so-called ceasefire has been in place. But Behnam, in terms of how that is happening with the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu, there are different interests here. Operation Epic Fury and then Roaring Lion, of course, have been absolutely spectacular to watch. The U.S. military, the Israeli military working together towards common goals. But Israel is in the neighborhood. They, of course, have been dealing with this direct threat for much more closely for decades, of course. Where are we seeing the differences here? And, Netanyahu needing to take certain positions and certain actions for the sake of his country, and then Trump, of course, having to take actions in terms of American interests.
Well, the funny thing is, even as we continue to count those differences, the Islamic Republic of Iran is an existential threat for Israel, is not an existential threat for America. That's really the start and the end of this kind of stuff. But everything that flows from that actually can help the U.S. act on its fundamentally different interest set. For example, empowering Israel, even against Iran's chief proxy, Hezbollah in Lebanon, for example, gives the U.S. more time, more assets, more resources, more leverage, and more political capital to focus on the other things and the other threats that do constitute a near existential or existential threat to it. So actually getting this difference right and acting on the Venn diagram of even some of the more limited areas of shared interest between Israel and America, not only insulate you from having to have tough phone calls or conduct diplomacy by tweet later on, but they actually empower you to do other things against much bigger threats well outside the Middle East, which, by the way, has been something the American public has been voting for almost a generation and a half, if not 2 generations now.
Mm-hmm. Gabe, in terms of the path forward here, President Trump, of course, has repeatedly threatened to wipe the regime off the map. He's threatened military force. They've kept military force on the table. They struck last week in response to attacks from Iran. Why do you think the president is not allowing Israel to just do what they need to do to get this job done? Why is there this restraint?
Look, it's clear that the president wants a deal. The president wants to put this behind him. But I believe that, some people may say the president is miscalculating Iran, but I actually would say that Iran is miscalculating the president. At some point, their welcome will wear thin. The president will realize that they're playing games with him, that they're not going to enter into a deal. We heard Vice President Vance today say that, of course, we'd have to verify any deal we made with him. We've been through this before, right? We've seen this movie before. Iran's not going to allow any verification. They're not going to allow the U.S. or Israel to take away the enriched uranium or the dust. It's just not going to happen. And at some point, they're going to realize that President Trump is not President Biden and he's not President Obama. And we will all see. We'll be gathered here today on your show, one day on your show, Katie, saying, well, look, they played for too long. They played this game the wrong way. And President Trump will greenlight more military actions because there will be no deal, in my opinion. There can be no deal that they will keep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I remember after Midnight Hammer, President Trump being pretty upset about what was happening between Israel and Iran. Then 9 months later, we joined with the Israelis to execute on Epic Fury. So who knows what's going to happen? We, of course, will be watching it. Gabe Groisman and Behnam Ben Taleblu, great to see you both. Thank you very much.